Okay, we've gone through several of the brush options, and now we are going to look at some of the mixer brush options. Also, if you look on Seaport or Blackboard, you'll see that I have a panel set up there that is a little different than the simple one here. You can add and subtract layers or adjustment layers to affect the painting as needed. We'll talk about that in later videos. So what is the mixer brush? The mixer brush, which you can see here, acts like a more traditional brush. It is unlike other brushes in that it lets you mix colors with each other. You can also change the wetness of the brush and how it mixes the brush color with the color already on the canvas. Let's try it out. The mixer brush, select it from the brush panel, brush toolbar right there, and then I'm going to select one of these bristle brushes because I really like the way that they work. I'm going to hit the bracket bar next to the letter P to make it a little larger. Let's see, that's pretty good. And I'm going to go down to underpainting. Let's look at what each of these does. First, let's clean the brush. I'm going to select a nice red using my color picker. What this first icon does is, the first icon loads the brush after each stroke. If I want to do that, I can keep this depressed. If not, it will dry out after the color of each stroke is applied. The second brush cleans the brush after each stroke, so you can depress that or not depress that. And then you have a couple different presets that tend to work very well, and you can start working with them and then adjust more precisely here. What the wet does is controls how much paint the brush picks up from the canvas. The load controls how much the paint holds when you begin painting. So if it's a heavy load, it's a brush full of paint. If it's a low load, then the brush doesn't have a lot of paint on it. The mix amount is how much it will mix with each other, and when you have simple layers, mix with the pixel content below. And then we have the flow of the brush, which is very similar to opacity in that it allows you to build up color. So let's try a couple of these presets and see how they look. I'm going to try dry first. I'm going to place a couple different colors down to show you how they mix. So let's put down some yellow. Also, the mixer brush does take up a lot of energy, so it's not the fastest. You need to give it a second or two to apply. And we're going to grab a blue. Let's put a blue here. Okay, I have sample all layers selected, but I've turned the background copy off, so we don't need to have that selected right now. With dry, if I select, like say, a green, and I go over the red and the yellow, you'll notice that there is no mixing. Mix is not even an option. The dry paints opaque color, and you cannot mix the colors on a dry canvas. Any color you sample will paint at 100% opacity and then eventually run out. Select a color using the eye or eyedropper tool to try it out. If I had a photograph or I had this layer on, I could use eye while I have the mixer brush selected, press I, click, and then unpress I, and you can sample a color from inside the painting. Or you can always go up here and grab something from the color picker. All right, so let's get rid of that last one. Let's move this to moist. And you'll see that there starts to be a mixing of the colors. There's not too much of this orange that we're seeing though. Let's see if we can get a really, really bright orange. Bring it up here. So the colors are mixing, but we're not keeping too much of that orange, just a little bit. So let's go to wet. And what it should do is mix it very, very much. And you'll start to see the orange in there too. So whatever one of these that you're experimenting with, I suggest making a new layer, putting red, yellow, and blue down, and then playing around with these different settings, different wetness, load, mix and flow, and seeing how one color interacts with another color. Dry, no mixing. Very wet, heavy mix, a lot of mixing. You have this preview window, and if you have a Wacom tablet, you can also see the angle that the brush is working. If you have this and you don't want it, you can always click off of it to shut it. I kind of like it. And you notice everything I'm doing is on a blank layer, so it's not affecting anything else. So while you're learning how to do this, this is a great way to understand how the mixer brush works. Okay, let's get started on blocking some areas out.